Listen closely because this is how a day dies before it even begins. The street is still blue with dawn. Kesha hugs a coffee cup for warmth and rehearses today's docket in her head. 3 hearings, 1 sick child, and a promise to herself to breathe. She steps toward the courthouse she served for years, dressed plain. No robe. Just a woman on her way to work. A uniform steps into her path. His eyes skim past her like she's clutter on the sidewalk. "Move along," he says. The words are casual, but the tone is barbed wire. Kesha offers a calm smile, the tool she uses when men mistake volume for authority. Identification in her hand, breath steady, pulse not. "What are you doing here at this hour?" he asks. In that instant, a thought drops into her body like ice. He isn't asking. He's hunting for a reason. She could explain. She could name the courtroom that bears her initials. Instead, she does the safest thing. She says nothing and lets the badge read her silence as harmless. But fear is a translator that turns silence into guilt. His palm flashes. The slap lands bright and hot, a sunrise that explodes on her cheek. The coffee tumbles. Papers scatter like birds flushed from a tree. "You people don't learn," he mutters. The phrase isn't new. It is ancient, practiced, polished by 1,000 unrecorded mornings. Kesha tastes copper. Somewhere a phone camera blinks awake. Somewhere a conscience blinks shut. He grips her wrist. Cold steel touches skin. Her heart does a small animal thing. Tries to run while standing still. "Say one wrong word," the uniform whispers, "and you won't see daylight again." Hook. Fear. He wants her to hear them as laws, not threats. He wants the world to confirm his story before he even tells it. Kesha studies his eyes, steady, rehearsed. Not a mistake. A pattern. She files the moment inside herself the way she files every motion. Carefully, completely, with the quiet confidence of a person who refuses to live unrecorded. Someone on the steps laughs. Shame, Kesha thinks, is the soft glove that helps violence put on its boots. He shoves her toward the doors. Stone is cool against her back. She can smell the starch of his shirt, the iron of her own blood, the lie forming in his throat. In a breath that no one notices, she takes inventory. Camera domes above the arch, time on the courthouse clock, names on brass plaques, angles of shadow across the steps. If survival is an exam, she writes answers on the margins. The cuffs click. They sound like a door locking from the inside, and still beneath the sting, curiosity stirs. How far will he go? How far will she? Because some mornings start like a routine, and some mornings start like a fuse. Today the match has been struck. The hallway swallows the sound of her cuffs as he marches her inside. Fluorescent lights hum like a warning. He straightens his uniform, rubs the red mark on his hand as if the pain belongs to him, and slips on a practiced smile. Watch now, he tells himself. Control the frame and the frame becomes the truth. A clerk keeps her eyes down. A prosecutor stacks folders as if paper can keep order. Kesha sits, back straight, wrists burning, mind sharpening. She lets the fear settle into focus. He begins his story. Suspicious individual. Erratic behavior. Refused identification. Standard phrases like rails on a track. Carrying the train of his voice straight through disbelief. He gestures toward her. The room tries to see her smaller. That's the trick, isn't it? You shrink a person first, then you fit a crime around what's left. The prosecutor nods along, relieved by how familiar the script sounds. Bodycam malfunctioned, he adds. The word malfunction lands like a broom that sweeps away anything messy. Kesha presses her tongue to a cracked lip and tastes the morning again. She will not interrupt, not yet. Curiosity wants every lie listed for the record. The judge asks about force. Minimum necessary, he says, and his voice vibrates with borrowed righteousness. 2 officers back him up with clipped sentences. A laugh ripples through memory of other mornings. Kesha scans faces and files details. A badge number missing a screw, a smudge on a brass plate, a camera in the corner with a tiny red blink. Insecurity taps. What if the room wants the lie more than the truth? She meets that fear like an attorney meets a hostile witness. He says she claimed to be important. He says people like her play the victim to dodge consequences. People like her. Those are the words that do the heavy lifting in rooms like this. Her chest tightens, but not from panic. She hears the ticking of the wall clock and times her breath to it. Anger is gasoline. Timing is the spark. He pulls out a partial video, clipped to start at her flinch. The gallery leans forward the way people lean toward a fire they think they can control. Look closer, Kesha thinks. You will see what he doesn't mean to show. She imagines the security room down the hall, hard drives humming. Cameras don't fear badges. They only fear power outages. The judge asks one more question, the kind that invites a man to step over his own cliff. Did she resist? Absolutely, he says, and the word falls into silence like a coin into a well. Everyone waits to hear it hit bottom. Kesha lifts her eyes at last. In a voice even and clear, she says only 2 words. Noted. Proceed. And something in the room shifts. A tiny click inside the lock. A badge can start a story. A lie can't carry it forever. In the quiet that follows, fear doubles back on itself and turns into interest. What is she waiting for? What does she know that we don't? Her answer lives in steel cabinets and timestamps and angles. Her answer is patient. She sits with her pain and builds a bridge of facts across it. When she finally walks the room across, no one will remember where the river used to run. The courtroom breathes in and out like a living thing. On the wall above the doors, a brass nameplate glows in the tired light. K. Williams, it reads. The irony is so loud it feels like a siren only she can hear. She tracks details the way a medic tracks pulse. Steady, constant, fatal if missed. Camera 7 watches the steps. Camera 3 watches the hall. The bailiff, Henderson, studies her too long, recognition twitching at his mouth. Memory is waking up in this room, and memory is dangerous to liars. Her scattered papers sit on the evidence table. Memos, hearing notes, access cards. Names on cold brass. Her fingers itch to point, to say them out loud, to force sound into the silence. Not yet. Patience, she tells her fear. Be useful. The prosecutor asks for charges: trespass, resisting, assault. Boxes checked, lives rearranged. Kesha raises her cuffed hands a few inches, weighing the cost. Permission to speak, she says, and the judge grants it, expecting noise. He doesn't get noise. He gets clarity. Sidewalks are public forums, she begins. Cases say so. Timelines say so. Cameras say so. She requests all surveillance between 8:45 and 9:15 be preserved. Her tone is steady. Her diction precise, the cadence of someone who knows exactly which thread will unravel a sweater. A clerk in the back blinks hard. That voice, that cadence, she has heard both every day. Curiosity walks up her spine and knocks on certainty's door. Kesha lists the documents: court calendar, access card, parking pass. Professional capacity, the judge repeats, trying to sound skeptical and landing on respectful by accident. What is your profession, Miss Williams? She answers. The room tilts. A breath later, she adds, Dr. Martinez swallows. He has heard flames before. They usually arrive as sirens. This one is quiet. She builds. Rule numbers, preservation orders, chain of custody. Each phrase a brick in a road she is laying stone by stone across the gap between what happened and what will be proven. Fear leans over her shoulder and whispers, what if they pretend not to understand? Then we make understanding cost them nothing. She replies inwardly, we make lies expensive instead. The judge clears his throat. There will be a brief recess. In the holding room, Henderson fumbles with keys. His hands shake. Your Honor, he whispers. The words fall to the floor between them like a confession. It's all right, she says, and means it. Recognition can be late. Courage must be on time. I need my robe, she tells him. The black one with the gold trim. Bring my gavel. Bring the name that belongs to this bench. He hurries out. She is alone with the sting on her face and the thunder in her chest. She texts her clerk. Clear the afternoon. She calls the chief judge. Preserve everything, multiple copies, different rooms. On the far wall, a mirror shows a woman who asks for truth and now must demand it for herself. The bruise is a purple crescent. The eyes are bright enough to cut wire. This is the moment a story decides whether it will break you or become your spine. She chooses spine. She breathes like a runner at the blocks. Names on cold brass. She will say them soon. And when she does, the room will remember who taught it the meaning of order. The recess ends like a held breath released. Doors swing. Shoes scrape. Gossip tries to settle into seats and pretend to be law. Kesha stands just beyond the chamber door, robe over her arm. Henderson nods once, eyes bright. This is not theater. It is correction. She draws the robe on, heavy and familiar. When she steps out, Henderson calls the room to its feet. All rise. She walks to the bench and sits. The bruise on her cheek is not hidden. Officer, you may remain standing, she says, and the machine that had been humming along grinds. The narrative machine loves bias, hurry, and fear, but the machine also has a weakness. It cannot digest proof. She asks simple questions. Did you testify that she was erratic? Did you claim resistance? Did your camera fail? Each yes arrives smaller than the one before it. Then she asks the room to do something brave and basic, to look. The screen shows stone steps, dawn, and a hand that moves faster than truth. The slap lands again, but this time it strikes the story that tried to hide it. A sound moves through the gallery, the sound people make when the floor shifts. Kesha pauses the frame at his certainty and his cruelty. The camera keeps perfect time. The lie does not. She builds timestamp, camera angle, chain of custody. She points once to the brass nameplate over the doors, as if to remind the room that names are not decorations. The judge she relieves with a nod, gathers his papers and retreats. Martinez swallows hard enough to hurt. His story keeps trying to run forward, but the tape has a different plan. It runs backward to the moment it was born. You said she claimed to be important, she notes. What she claimed was oxygen. His partners shift. One studies the floor. Fear hangs like smoke, then folds into curiosity. If this piece was a lie, what else was scripted? Kesha introduces receipts, documents, and calendars. Then she does the quietest, dangerous thing. She tells the room who she is. My name is Kesha Williams. The bench recognizes the voice before the ears do. The words land not as taunt, but as correction. This is the scale finding its true center. Gasps are cheap. Change is expensive. The machine tries one last cough. Malfunction, misunderstanding. But the new settings hold. She requests a preservation order. She speaks the language of rules, not vengeance. The temp judge nods from the aisle. Henderson stands a little taller. The clerk in the back sits a little straighter. The gallery learns a new posture. Attention without assumption. Martinez says very little now. Kesha studies the room like a surgeon studies a monitor. She closes this phase with a sentence that sounds almost gentle. Court will proceed on the record. Proof will lead. Outside, sirens complain at distant traffic. Inside, a different siren begins. You are out of road. Interest swells. Everyone wants the next turn of the wrench. Insecurity surfaces. Will they twist this too? She answers it with facts in daylight. The robe is not armor. It is a promise. The machine whispers a bargain. Settle for an apology, make it tidy, move on. She has spent a career teaching that tidy without true is just another mess. So she sets the stage for dismantling. Every file, every backup, every statistic. And as the room exhales, it understands something simple and hard. Today will not be about saving face. It will be about saving the record. Listen. The camera above the courthouse door doesn't blink, doesn't flinch, doesn't care who wears a badge or who wears bruises. It just keeps time. 8:47 a.m., a woman with a coffee. 8:48, a hand like a hammer. 8:49, a crowd pretending the morning is normal. The lens sees everything we try to talk away. Kesha knows this. She has taught juries for years that memory is needy and cameras are not. So while the slap still burns and the cuffs bite, her mind is already walking the angles. Dome cam over the arch, corridor cam by the magnetometer, stairwell cam with the wide view that catches what people miss. Fear wants her to curl in, to shrink. Curiosity pulls her forward. What did each eye catch? Where did the truth choose to stand? The officer leans on malfunction. The word is a lazy spell people use when they hope the room is too tired to ask questions. But this building is a hive of lenses. Red LEDs wink like patient witnesses. A hard drive hums under a desk. A backup server across the street mirrors each file minute by legal minute. Cameras don't forget. They wait. Inside security, a monitor grid shows squares of gray-blue life. Steps, doors, the flag struggling in the morning wind. A tech sips tea and rewinds. He doesn't know he's holding a country's favorite argument in his hands. Do we believe the person with power or the picture without it? He drags the slider back 2 minutes and winces as a palm flashes. That sound, he imagines it, feels it in his own teeth. Kesha sits at the defense table, but she does not defend herself to herself. She inventories. She breathes to the count of 4. 4 is a square. A square has corners. Each corner gets a camera. She maps them in her head and feels steadier. Fear is still here, yes, but it has a job now. To keep her alert while proof finds its shoes. In the hallway, whispers travel. Did you see? I heard the cam died. I heard she was yelling. I heard she swung first. The camera hears none of this. It has only light and time. That is why people love and hate it. It refuses to take sides, and by refusing, it often takes the right one. The prosecutor believes in paperwork. The officer believes in volume. The judge believes in schedule. The camera believes in playback. When the file opens, the room will have to look. They can dislike what they see, but they cannot unknow it. And when denial can't breathe, truth finally can. Kesha pictures the moment the video freezes on his face mid-sneer, the kind people wear when they think they're safe. She imagines the tiny click in the gallery, heart switching allegiance from habit to sight. She does not savor it. She prepares for it. Proof is not revenge. It is a rescue line for the mind. Time crawls. The bruise darkens. The officer polishes his story like a boot. But the camera never forgets. It remembers coffee steam, a paper drifting like a wounded bird, the way her shoulders squared even after impact. It remembers the words he used, because another device caught the sound while this one held the picture. And somewhere, a sync process is stitching eyes and ears together into one undeniable spine. This is how a day that wanted to become a lie gets pulled back toward daylight, frame by frame, angle by angle, until the whole thing stands upright and names itself. Not a malfunction, not a misunderstanding. Evidence. Janet sits in the back row with a legal pad balanced on her knee, pretending to take notes on a case that isn't hers. She is a clerk, and clerks are supposed to be invisible. But invisibility has rules, and the first rule is you still see. She has watched Judge Williams walk this hallway 1,000 mornings, carrying the weight of other people's crises with a straight spine and a soft word. Today, the woman in plain clothes at the defense table has the same posture, the same quiet center. Janet's pen hesitates, memory rewinds. Coffee in the elevator last week. The judge laughing about how her robe pocket keeps catching on the door handle. The gold-trimmed thread she only wears on difficult days. Janet's pen stops. That bruise doesn't match this story. The cadence doesn't match either. When the woman spoke, measured, specific, cool, the words walked like they owned the carpet. Fear whispers, "Don't get involved." Interest taps back. "If you were on that bench, what would you want a clerk to do?" Janet checks the clock. If this is who she thinks it is, calendar entries will prove it. Her login opens the docket system. 9:00 a.m. K. Williams status conference. 10:30 a.m. suppression hearing. 1 p.m. sentencing. She scrolls to the internal notes. Chambers arrival window 8:45, 8:55. Her pulse thuds. Confirmation is a drumbeat you can march to. She rises casually like a woman who needs a bathroom, and instead slides into records. The guard nods. "Clerks live here." She pulls the access log. Card ping at 8:41. Elevator shows a dark sedan on 2. Custodian signed for robes last week. Each detail is a stitch. Insecurity kicks once more. What if you're wrong and you blow up your life? She remembers 3 months ago, the judge thanking her by name for catching a clerical error that saved a defendant 6 needless months. "Be brave in small paperwork," the judge had said. "It trains you for the big kind." Janet breathes and becomes the person she promised she would be. She drafts a memo for the presiding judge. Potential misidentification of detained individual. Probable judicial personnel involved. Immediate preservation recommended. No adjectives. Facts only. She attaches screenshots, calendar, access ping, CCTV map with camera numbers. She flags security and chambers with the same packet. She does not CC the officer. She knows which pipes you feed when you want clean water at the faucet. Back in the gallery, she watches the officer talk like a man pulling a tablecloth from under dishes he didn't set. He smiles when he says malfunction. She writes the word on her pad and underlines it twice, then draws a tiny camera next to it with a speech bubble. Hello. Humor is the stubborn twin of courage. When recess is called, she moves. Down the hall, she meets Henderson. He looks like someone told him the ocean is dry. "Is it her?" he whispers. Janet nods. "Go," she says. "I'll cover your post if anyone asks." He doesn't argue. Good men don't when truth is sprinting. On her way back, Janet passes the security room. The tech's face is blue in the monitor glow. "Do you have the steps?" He nods. "Backup? 2 copies already. Off-site? Spinning." She exhales. Systems matter because people panic. Systems that work are how scared people still do the right thing. She returns as the doors open. The woman in the robe steps in. The air leaves the room like it was punched. Relief hits so sharp it hurts. Recognition is risky. It is also a lighthouse. Janet stands with everyone else, and for the first time all morning she smiles. Not because the fight is over, because the truth has finally stood up and said, "I'm here. Now do your jobs. Orders save facts from getting lost." Kesha has said this 100 times to lawyers who treat procedure like a suggestion. Now she uses her own lesson. Back from recess, she sits, folds her hands, and speaks in a voice the room cannot ignore. All electronic surveillance from 8:45 to 9:15 preserved immediately. No alteration, no deletion, no delay. Chain of custody logged in ink. Copies to chambers and to the presiding judge. The words are clean tools. They leave no fingerprints of anger. The prosecutor rises to object and ends up arguing against time itself. She says representation, she says form, she says later. Kesha answers with case names that fit together like lock and key. The court has inherent authority. Brady obligations attached now. Rule 106 permits summaries of voluminous records. If we don't lock this down today, there may be nothing left to dispute tomorrow. Fear shifts seats in the gallery. People who came for routine now feel the cliff under their shoes. Henderson brings a cart, sealed drives, labels, an evidence log on a clipboard. He is sweating, but not from doubt, from speed. Janet appears at his elbow with the CCTV map. Cameras circled in red. The security tech arrives with a sealed envelope. Off-site backup verification. This is not drama. It is plumbing. When truth has to travel, you build pipes that don't leak. Kesha signs, dates, initials. She narrates the chain aloud for the transcript, as if teaching a class whose final exam is tonight. Camera 7, main steps. Camera 3, corridor by security. Camera 9, hall outside chambers. Bodycam backups. Automatic mirror every 60 seconds to county cloud. Mobile captures, court orders to compel uploads preserved pending review. The stenographer taps, turning air into record. The officer watches, jaw tight. He knows what he said. He knows what he did. He also knows how often malfunction and missing have saved him from himself. Not today. Each signature is a sandbag on the riverbank. Each label is a seatbelt for the truth when the room swerves. The prosecutor tries once more. Scope, she says. Burden. Kesha answers with simplicity. The burden of keeping evidence is lighter than the burden of losing it. The judge who borrowed her bench nods, almost grateful to be told what law sounds like when it isn't afraid. Order granted, he says. Then he looks at her and steps aside. She takes the bench she owns. There is a soft sound in the gallery, the kind people make when the story they believed starts wobbling. Kesha doesn't chase it. She gives tasks. Henderson, escort the tech to records. Janet, duplicate the log for chambers. Counsel, you will receive copies. You will sign for them. The officer, you will not touch these materials. His blink is slow. He hears what everyone hears. The center has moved. She pauses, not for effect, but for breath. Fear is still in the room, pacing. She lets it pace. Let fear make people careful, not cruel. Let curiosity make them thorough. Let procedure hold their hands while they cross from habit into proof. When she brings the gavel down, it is not loud. It is precise. Somewhere downstairs, a printer warms up and begins to spit out labels, dates, times. Somewhere across town, a backup server hums a little louder. This is the sound of a city deciding that today's truth will still exist tomorrow. That is what a preservation order really is. A promise kept in advance. The cuffs sit cold on Kesha's wrists like a dare. Pain speaks in pulses, but she refuses to let pain speak for her. She lifts her chin, and there it is, a small smile. It isn't sweetness. It's a signal. I am whole. I am watching. I am writing this down in ink you can't see yet. The officer mistakes the smile for surrender and relaxes into his script. People like you, he says in his tone if not his words. She files the phrase under Exhibit A, the category that explains all the bad decisions that follow. The gallery reads her face and begins to wonder. Doubt is contagious. So is steadiness. Kesha feeds the second on purpose. Why smile now? Because she has already counted the cameras. Because Janet is somewhere doing math with calendars. Because the law is slow but not asleep, and slow things crush when they finally move. Fear knocks. She opens the door and gives it a chair. Watch, she tells it. You keep me sharp. You don't get the wheel. She checks her doubts. What if the video is blurry? What if audio missed the slur? What if the room prefers the lie it married long ago? She answers each with a plan. Blurry is still motion. Audio has friends and other devices. Rooms don't prefer. People do, and people can be shown. Plans calm nerves the way naming storms calm sailors. Her smile widens a hair when the prosecutor says malfunction with a straight face. Kesha imagines the server across town doing its quiet work, mirroring data like a lighthouse blinking. She imagines the moment the frames align, the slap, the words, the shove, and the room's breath catches. Not petty, not vengeful, holy. The kind that rises when something bent is about to be set straight. She shifts her shoulders and feels the bruise stretch. Good, she thinks. Let the pain register in the record too. This is skin. She watches the officer smirk at his own story and files the smirk under Exhibit B. Patterns turn single acts into policy. The bailiff passes water. Kesha drinks and holds the cup with both bound hands like a ritual. The gallery leans in. What is she, victim? Judge, both? That question will scare some and free others. She lets it work. Janet slips in and sits. Their eyes meet for a half second. I see you. I've got you. Then the chamber door opens and the robe arrives. The room gasps. The cuffs are still on. The smile stays. Both can be true at once, bound and in charge. Injured and unafraid, the officer looks from steel to silk and cannot compute the math. He used to simple equations, badge and citizen. Today, new variables enter. Record plus time plus witness plus courage. He doesn't solve for X because he doesn't know he should. She does. X is consequence, and it is coming on steady feet. The cuffs will come off when the record is safe. Until then, she lets them teach the room. Power does not live in metal. It lives in meaning. Her smile says what the gavel will say soon. Watch carefully. You will want to remember the moment when the story flipped, and the truth did not need to raise its voice. Malfunction is a magic word people say when they want the room to stop thinking. The officer says it like a lullaby. Bodycam malfunctioned. The way he draws out the last word tells you he expects relief to spread like warm water. No need to check. No need to rewind. Sleep, everyone. Trust me. But myths break on details. Kesha leans forward and asks the kind of questions that wake a room up. When did it fail? Before or after the stop? Any error code displayed? Did you file a maintenance ticket? What was the last successful upload time to the county cloud? The gallery hears the rhythm. This is how you walk a lie into daylight. Tiny steps that sound harmless until the door is open and the street is staring. He answers in vague weather. Around 8-something, it just froze. We've had issues. Partners nod, but their chins wobble. Kesha keeps at it. The county system mirrors every 60 seconds, yes? Correct. Step cams run no matter your device, yes? Correct. Any on-duty mobile recordings fall under preservation when ordered? Correct. The lullaby is over. The room is awake. The tech explains without drama. The mirror process is automatic. You can't stop it from the camera. No outage reported. Logs show pings from this unit at 8:46, 8:47, 8:48, 8:49, then an abrupt stop at 8:50 and a reconnect at 9:12. Plain facts are deadly to pretty lies. Kesha turns back. What makes a device stop talking at 8:50? He has no answer, so the room invents one. A hand, a finger, a choice. She doesn't accuse. She lines up the facts and lets gravity do the rest. Curiosity nips. If his cam failed, why is there audio from a partner? The tech says body cams mesh. When one is muted or blocked, nearby units pick up crossfeed like overlapping umbrellas. You can hide your own, but you still get wet. Objection, speculation, the prosecutor tries. We're not guessing, Kesha says. We're reading logs. Better yet, we're watching. She cues the step cam. Stone and Morning fill the screen. The slap, the words. Timestamps march like a metronome. A second angle confirms distance and intent. Then a third. The hall cam. His grin. His phone. The myth of malfunction lies down quietly. It doesn't fight because lying requires stamina, and the room is no longer lending it any. Kesha turns to the gallery. We don't have to hate anyone to love the truth, she says, and the sentence is a door some people were waiting for. This is not revenge. This is repair. The officer whispers, I'm sorry, trying to plant a new story in ground already seeded. Kesha hears it and answers with the only thing strong enough to hold a city together. Consequence. She lists the charges calmly. Not fury, not theater, just names for choices. Here is the lesson the room will carry home and tell its children without even knowing it learned. When someone says malfunction, ask for the log. Ask for the mirror, the backup, the ping, the second angle. Ask for the thing that does not care how important anyone feels. The truth is not offended by questions. Only lies are. And later, when people replay this day in kitchens and break rooms, they will remember how the myth sounded at first, soft, soothing, familiar, and how, once the question started, it had nothing left to say. That is the real malfunction, not in the camera, but in the old habit of believing ease over evidence. Today, that habit finally crashed and no one will miss the reboot. The floor doesn't move, but everyone feels it. It's the tilt that happens when a story you trusted suddenly wobbles. The gallery shifts in their seats as if bracing for a turn they didn't see coming. The temporary judge stands there, unsure whether to own the bench or return it like a borrowed coat. The officer's smile weakens at the corners, then holds, then tries to grow again. He's practiced that smile. It has worked in rooms where doubt is lazy. Not here, not now. The air carries a charge, fear mixed with interest, a fuse lit on both ends. Kesha breathes slow, steady, counting the beats as if counting is a rope across a canyon. She says very little. Silence from her is the hook. It keeps eyes on her face, on the bruise that is no longer an accusation but a fact. The prosecutor flips through folders even though nothing new is inside them. Paper can be armor when truth begins to knock. Curiosity walks aisle to aisle, whispering questions into ears that used to be comfortable. Why is she so calm? What does she know? What did we miss? The officer clears his throat like a man rehearsing courage with borrowed lines. He glances at the camera screen, then at the door to chambers, then at the badge on his own chest as if rank can explain gravity. It can't. Gravity explains itself. A clerk coughs. A pen drops. Tiny sounds grow large when a room tilts. Kesha's gaze is level. She does not chase him, does not run from him. She sets the pace and the room sinks to her steps. Insecurity lands briefly. What if they still love the lie? And leaves when she remembers how hard evidence breathes. The bailiff adjusts his stance. He has worked here long enough to know when a day writes itself into history. He sees a thin line run through the crowd, some faces tight with fear, some with hope, all waiting for confirmation that this feeling means what they think it means. The officer looks for his old script. It isn't on the table anymore. The new script requires honesty and it speaks quietly, which is why loud people miss it. Kesha thinks of every person who ever stood in front of this bench, with no one to tilt the room in their favor. She thinks of how power behaves when it thinks it is alone. The door behind her will open soon. She can feel the hinge in her bones. Across the aisle, Janet sits forward, ready to move. Her shoulders say, "I brought the map. Show me where to hang it." This moment is the narrow bridge between story and proof. It will hold. It always holds for a person who refuses to let go of both ends. Compassion in one hand, procedure in the other. The tilt increases. People brace, and still the floor does not move. It is their certainty that slides, and once certainty starts to slide, it will keep sliding until it hits something solid. The handle to chambers turns. The robe waits on the hook like a night sky stitched with gold thread. Kesha slides her arms into it, and the fabric remembers her shape. The lining is smooth with years of answers. The collar smells faintly of paper and coffee. The weight settles across her shoulders, heavier than anger, lighter than fear. Exactly the size of her promise. She looks in the small mirror and sees two truths at once. A bruise that says pain is real. A robe that says power is borrowed and must be returned in better condition. She straightens the hem. Her fingers find the familiar crease at the cuff. She thinks of every oath she has heard and every oath she has kept. Insecurity taps again, smaller now. What if the robe makes them see only authority and not the person who was hurt? She answers herself the way she answers a tricky question from counsel. Both can be true, and holding both is the work. Henderson stands in the doorway, eyes bright, chest proud in a way that carries apology without words. "Ready, Your Honor?" She nods. The title feels like a door opening from the inside. She picks up the gavel. It is warm from its box, heavier in the hand than it looks on the bench, steadying like a friend who doesn't do drama. She lets the weight guide her wrist, not to strike but to set tempo. Out in the hall, the murmur thickens. Curiosity has invited its friend, excitement, and excitement is nervous because it knows consequence travels close behind. Kesha sets her breath to a simple cadence, in for courage, out for clarity. The robe is not protection from pain. It is responsibility for pain. Hers, theirs, the city's. She opens the door to the corridor. Lights buzz, muted by fabric. Each step echoes, then dissolves into carpet near the threshold to the courtroom. She pauses there, not from doubt, but from respect for the line she is about to cross. This robe has seen promotions and goodbyes, birth certificates and final sentences. Today it will see confession in a new form, evidence that refuses to be quiet. She enters. Henderson calls the room to its feet. The sound rolls across wood like a wave meeting shore. The robe draws eyes, but the bruise keeps them honest. She sits. The weight settles on the bench like a book placed back on the right shelf. She does not feel large. She feels exact. Calm replaces heat. Fear becomes focus. Interest sharpens. She places the gavel down gently and rests her hands on the wood. The robe asks one thing only: remember who you serve. She remembers. Everyone. Henderson's voice hits the walls just right, the way a bell tells a town that time has arrived. All rise, shoes scrape, paper stops rustling. Even the air seems to stand. Kesha looks out over the room, not as a queen surveying a crowd, but as a builder checking the scaffolding before the climb. Her gaze lands on the officer. He remains standing because she told him to, and the order wraps around him like a spotlight he didn't ask for. Consequences do not move fast or slow. They move at the speed of what you did. She begins with simple, small-ranged questions that close doors behind the answers. Did you testify under oath? Yes. Did you state the device failed? Yes. Did you claim resistance? Yes. Each yes is a nail. The prosecutor swallows and adjusts her stance, trying to balance on a platform that is shortening board by board. Curiosity in the gallery takes on a new flavor. Fear's cousin, anticipation. People sense the turn. They don't know the route, but they know the destination. Accountability with a capital A and maybe with a date stamped under it. Kesha turns to the clerk. Bring the log. Janet moves, precise as a metronome. The log arrives. The evidence cart rolls. Henderson announces item numbers. The tech swears in with a voice that trembles only once, then smooths out under the comfort of facts. Kesha sets rules like railings. No interruptions, no delays. No touching the drives unless and until instructed. The officer attempts a small smile again, the kind meant to charm a room back into sleep. It doesn't travel. People are awake now, and once awake, they prefer windows to curtains. Kesha states what will happen next in sentences clean enough to build trust on. We will view the recording from the exterior steps. We will view the corridor feed. We will view the mirrored Bodycam audio. What we see and hear, we will not argue with. What we still need, we will get. She is not threatening. She is announcing the weather. Clouds move in, rain will fall, roads will be slick, drive accordingly. The hook is not fire, it is certainty. The issue is not only one man, it is the gravity that formed his habits and the comfort that fed them. The room senses it. Consequences are standing, waiting to be called by name. Kesha lifts the remote the way a conductor lifts a baton. She looks once more at the faces, the hopeful, the stubborn, the scared, and gives each one permission to be changed. All right, she says softly, as if to a room full of brave students. Let's look. Stone breathes cold on the screen. Pigeons jump. Coffee steam curls like a question. The doorframe is a rectangle of mourning. Then a uniform fills the frame and a hand cuts across light. The slap is not loud in the room. It is loud inside people's chests. It is the kind of sound your bones remember more than your ears. The timestamp sits in the corner like a witness that never sleeps. 08:48:13. The gallery exhales together, a tired, honest sound. Kesha does not rush. She pauses the frame on impact, then on the instant after, when the officer's face shows something worse than anger. Certainty. She lets the room stare at certainty, because certainty is how harm repeats. Then she presses play. Papers fly, the shove, the cuffs. The words he said, captured by another mic, slide under the picture like a bass line you hear with your skin. Filthy. Cage. Not for people like you. The room tilts again, but this time toward truth. The tech advances to the corridor camera. We see him fix his collar, see his grin, see him perform the story for the lens he thinks is friendly. Cameras do not have friends. They have angles. Kesha asks the tech to split screen the feeds, exterior left, corridor right. Impact and performance side by side. The lie looks small now, like a child's costume under office lights. The officer whispers, "I'm sorry," as if the syllables could sand down steel. Kesha nods once, not unkindly, but without granting magic to the word. The tape keeps playing. We hear partners in the background, their laughter thin, their bravado leaking. We see the moment he palms the camera, the sudden dip, the gap, the reconnect. The logs back it up. Curiosity turns into confirmation. The room needed something solid to stand on. Now it has a floor. Kesha instructs rewind. Freeze here. Circle that. Note the position of his feet, the distance to the steps, the lack of threat in her posture. She explains in clean language why these details matter. Issues, insecurities, blind spots, she names them not to shame but to teach the room how to see. This is not entertainment. This is a repair shop for broken trust. The screen shows the slap one last time and then Keisha lowers the remote. The tape has said enough. She looks at the gallery. Some faces are wet. Some jaws are set. Some eyes are closed. Not in avoidance, but in prayer. She lets the silence sit. Because silence after proof is where new choices grow. Patterns don't announce themselves with trumpets. They hide inside repeated words and recycled excuses. Kesha opens a file thick with numbers and thin with mercy. She speaks the pattern in simple sentences that land like small stones, steady, building a path. 15 years on the force, 47 complaints. Most ruled unsubstantiated by a system that liked the sound of that word too much. She points to the dismissal rates. She points to the use of force spikes. She points to the way certain phrases appear in report after report like a stamp no one bothered to clean. Erratic, non-compliant, threat to officer safety. When the same words wear too many different faces, you don't have a story. You have a template. The officer shifts in his chair. Insecurity pours off him. It smells like fear dressed in pride. He says, "I was just doing my job." She answers, "Then your job was broken and you chose not to notice." That is what patterns reveal. Not only what has been done, but what we preferred not to see. Janet places charts on an easel. Lines climb where they should not. Bars stretch where law says they ought to stay small. The gallery leans forward because seeing math turn into meaning is a strange relief. It explains the ache people carry without names. Kesha lists the payouts not to humiliate but to show cost. Money that could have fixed playgrounds and clinics spent instead to settle harm. That could have been prevented by courage and tape and one man choosing not to slap. She breathes. She makes room for the human being in front of her without excusing the harm he carried into the day like a habit. Her voice softens, not as a gift to him, but as respect for the people in the room who need to believe change is possible without cruelty. Fear tries to return, whispering that patterns are too big to break. She answers fear with process and will. We will audit cases. We will reopen files. We will teach officers how to name their bias and not hand it a gun. We will make backing up cameras boring and required. We will give the city the receipts it deserves. The hook that began this morning, can truth survive power, finds its answer here. Only if we count, only if we keep, only if we check. Kesha closes the file. She does not slam it. She does not glare. She looks at the officer and sees a man who trusted a broken pattern to keep him safe. Then she looks at the room and sees a city learning how to become dangerous to its own worst habits. The pattern is visible now. That is the beginning of the end of it. The lights hum like a lie trying to stay alive. The officer raises his right hand and repeats the words he said before, and the oath rolls out flat, like something memorized but never kept. "Do you swear to tell the truth?" "Yes, Your Honor." His voice is smooth, but his eyes keep hunting for an exit. Hooks set fast in quiet rooms. People lean in without moving, pulled by curiosity and fear in equal amounts. Kesha studies him the way a doctor studies a scan, looking for shadows, not speeches. Under fluorescent light, make-believe looks glossy and cheap. She walks him through details that don't love him back. Timestamps, upload logs, error codes he can't name. The Bodycam mirror that pings every 60 seconds whether he smiles or not. He answers like a man carrying a glass of water across ice. Around 8, not sure. Must have glitched. The words skid. She doesn't raise her voice. She shortens the road. "Before the stop, did it ping?" "Yes, during the stop, did it ping?" Silence. The gallery hears the shape of the hole and understands more than tech talk could teach. He tries one last trick, big feelings, small facts. "I feared for safety." She nods as if that feeling matters and facts matter more. Fear is a smoke alarm, officer. It warns. It doesn't rewrite what the camera saw. The oath over his head starts to feel heavy, like a roof sagging under snow. Henderson swears in the tech and the chain of custody clerk. Their words are simple, the kind that don't wobble when you touch them. "Yes, we preserved." "Yes, 2 backups." "Yes, offsite verified." Under these lights, honesty glows the way clean floors do. No shine, no smell, just the comfort of not slipping. The officer's jaw tightens. He knows it now. The oath he spoke in seconds is about to measure his years. Kesha lets the truth do what truth does when it's finally given a chair. It sits, it stays. It holds the room steady while secrets try to sprint for the door. She ends the exchange with the softest knife. Thank you, officer. You may step down for now. He understands the for now, the oath does too. It isn't done with him yet. You can feel the breathing. It comes in waves. Hope on the inhale, dread on the exhale. People sit up straighter without meaning to, as if their spines want to be useful. No one coughs. No phones buzz. The gallery holds its breath like a choir, waiting for a note that will either save the song or break it. A woman in the third row presses her palm against her chest. The man beside her folds his hands, not in prayer, but in a promise to listen. Curiosity lives in the corners, tugging at old habits. Maybe this is different. Maybe the ending we keep getting isn't the ending we'll get today. On the aisle, a young officer stares at the screen and swallows hard, as if learning a language he should have learned before he put on a uniform. He is afraid for reasons he can respect. That is new. Janet sits with her legal pad, writing almost nothing now. Her job is done. Her faith is not. The prosecutor's pen hovers over a blank line where she expected a win, then drops. She knows what a record sounds like when it's turning against her. The temporary judge stands off to the side, robes gathered, eyes lowered, humbled by how quickly a borrowed bench can feel like hot metal. Kesha is still. Stillness is a hook stronger than shouting. It tells the room, we are not chasing truth. We are letting it arrive. The screen shows stone and mourning. Someone gasps. Just once, the sound a parent makes when they see the car almost drift into the lane. Then everyone goes quiet again, because quiet is how respect breathes. Doubt tries to slip back in, wearing its favorite coat. What if this changes nothing? Kesha answers without turning her head. It changes this, she thinks. This room, this record, this is where change always starts, one room that refuses to pretend it didn't see. The tape freezes. Timestamps glare like little suns. The gallery inhales together, a tide hitting shore. Henderson shifts his weight, not to intimidate, but to reassure. We are here. We will stand as long as this takes. The breath the gallery holds will not last forever, but it lasts long enough for courage to climb onto it. When they finally exhale, the sound is a kind of consent. Do it. Say the words that match what we saw. Make the record true. Power doesn't vanish in a flash, it learns. It looks around, realizes the room has changed, and tries to sit where it used to stand. The officer used to own rooms by walking into them. Now he stands inside a circle he didn't draw. Kesha doesn't humiliate him. Humiliation teaches nothing. She confines him to facts. You said malfunction. The log says ping, ping, silence, ping. You said resistance. The video shows hands at her sides. You said threat. The distance is 7 feet, her chin lifted, her stance nonviolent. She speaks like a carpenter reading a level. The bubble doesn't lie. He lowers his eyes. Pride fights shame. Shame wins the first round because facts keep handing it rope. The prosecutor clears her throat, tries context, tries perspective, tries trained response. Keisha nods, then points to the schedule, the sidewalk, the badge numbers. Perspective is not a trapdoor. We will not fall through it to avoid the floor. The court staff on the back wall exchange a look they have never shared at work, relief that doesn't need to hide. Janet passes up an exhibit, the officer's complaint history, the kind of pattern that makes power nervous. Kesha lays it flat and smooths the edges. She does not call him a monster. She calls him what the proofs say he has been, careless with force, loyal to a template, trusting a broken system to catch him when he jumps. The gallery doesn't cheer. That's the lesson landing. Justice is not a sport. It's a repair shop. Power starts to see its reflection, ugly, yes, but still a person, still a choice maker. That is how real change begins, not with a roar, but with a mirror you can't set down. Kesha gives him something rare, a clear path to accountability. Here is what you did. Here is what it cost. Here is what will happen next. The room learns with him. Consequences can be stern and still be clean. Power finally sits in the right seat, not above the law, inside it. Her voice is not loud when it happens. Loud is for bullies and fireworks. Kesha speaks like a bell that tells honest time. Based on the evidence viewed, the recordings authenticated, the logs verified, and the sworn testimony on this record, I make the following findings. The words are bricks. They do not wobble. She names each act by its right name. Assault. Deprivation of rights under color of law. False statements under oath. She does not add heat. Heat is for comfort or cooking. Today is for light. The officer's shoulders sag as if a storm front just crossed his body. He whispers something that sounds like sorry and stops when the word hits the bench and bounces. The gallery's fear shrinks, replaced by something firmer than hope. Confirmation. People glance at one another with tiny nods. We saw it. She saw it. It counts. Kesha continues, steady as a surgeon closing a wound. She orders immediate referral to the proper authorities. Preservation of all related cases he touched in the last 5 years. Review by an independent office with power to reopen, dismiss, or retry. She orders training that names bias, audits that don't ask permission, and backups that cannot be turned off with a thumb. She does not use the word reform like a ribbon. She uses requirements like bolts. Janet writes the last line of the order with a hand that doesn't tremble. Henderson's eyes shine, not from victory but from relief. The kind men feel when a heavy thing is finally lowered onto the right shelf. Kesha looks at the officer one more time and gives him the dignity of exactness. This is not about your feelings today. This is about your choices and our duty. The gallery hears duty and remembers why they came to trust rooms like this in the first place. Justice doesn't always sing. Sometimes it speaks in a librarian's tone, clear, organized, impossible to argue with. When she says the final words, ordered and so entered, the room seems to breathe out a decade of tightness. It's not joy, it's alignment. Something crooked stood up straight without breaking. When the gavel falls, it's not thunder. It's a heartbeat you can hear through the floor. The sound runs down the hall into offices, into elevators, into phones. It leaves the building and keeps going. Into a precinct where a rookie watches the clip twice and changes the way he puts on his camera tomorrow. Into a living room where a teenager sees a bruise, sees a robe, and understands that both can be true at once. Hurt and strong, scared and brave. Into a church basement where volunteers plan court-watching shifts and decide quietly that they will fill every bench until benches stop forgetting who owns them. Not everyone claps. This is not a movie. This is a system turning 1 degree toward the place it should have always faced. The aftershocks travel in paperwork. Cases reopened, letters sent, logs pulled, training dates set. They travel in policy. Automatic off-site mirrors nobody can accidentally mute. Independent auditors with keys to the back room. Complaints that don't die in dark drawers. They travel in people. Rodriguez staring at his reflection longer than before. Thompson signing his own statement with hands that understand weight. The prosecutor drafting a memo about how to stop confusing speed with justice. Kesha walks back to chambers and hangs the robe on its hook. Her cheek still aches. That, too, is part of the record. She sits and writes 3 notes. To the chief judge with a list of actions and deadlines. To the tech, thanking him for doing simple things fast. To Janet, reminding her that small brave doesn't stay small. Outside, a reporter will ask for quotes. She will say almost nothing. Let the order talk. It speaks better than I do. In the days that follow, there will be noise. Angry statements, proud statements, wild rumors, perfect nonsense. Aftershocks have echo, but the core stays quiet and busy. A mother gets a call about her son's case being reviewed. A man who lost a year to a lie gets a letter with the words wrongfully convicted, printed where any other day there would have been a bill. An academy class spends an hour on malfunction and ends with the rule. If there's no log, there's no excuse. Henderson stands at the top of the steps one morning and watches people enter. He has done this for years. It feels different without feeling strange. The building is not new. The promise inside it is freshly painted. The big lesson is not fancy. It is a road sign you can read at highway speed. Truth needs habits, not heroes. Cameras that cannot be silenced. Orders that travel faster than gossip. Rooms that love facts more than faces. Power that learns its place and stays there. If we keep those habits, the gavel doesn't have to fall so hard next time. And the next bruise, if there must be one, will not be asked to prove itself alone.